Tomi Lahren deals in right-wing punditry for The Blaze. In a recent segment, Tomi takes issue with Colin Kaepernick. Now, if you don't know who that is, he's a quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. Why is he important? Well, during the preseason, Kaepernick has not been standing for the pregame playing of the national anthem, something no one even noticed until he publicly announced his reason for doing so being a gesture to shed light on racial inequality towards black people and people of color in the United States. Tomi Lahren, of course, took issue. Irreverence for the flag as a means to initiate a discussion on race. As you know, and to paraphrase the right's viewpoint on race, in the interest of time, there is no real racial inequality in the United States. And to believe so is to imply you are either entitled, spoiled, unpatriotic, racist against white people, or some combination of each. This allows the right to take the moral high ground when stifling all discussions on race. This, of course, compounded in Kaepernick's case by the fact that his symbolic display undermines reverence to the nation's theme song. Add to that the fact that Lahren twists both public statements by Kaepernick and the entire narrative on race to fuel her rant. I decided to take a video and interject some sanity. So let's look at what amounts to a bunch of lies and outright fallacy by Lahren.
So let me go ahead and eviscerate this mouth diarrhea for you sentence by sentence. Here we go. Colin, I support the First Amendment. I support your right to freedom of speech and expression. Go for it, bud. It's this country, the country that you have so much disdain for, that allows you the right to speak your mind. It protects your right to be a whiny, indulgent, attention-seeking crybaby.
First off, she opens the argument by name-calling. So you'll have to remember to lower your mental maturity to that of a child in middle school, 6th or 8th grade. Secondly, why is someone who speaks out in favor of protecting civil liberties and racial equality whiny? Because the implication, at least to me, is that Tomi Lahren believes equality is a luxury and should not be expected. And maybe this is a misinterpretation of her meaning, but loosely quoting his reasoning and then calling it whining, she's saying these reasons are invalid. The only way that holds true is if an expectation of equal treatment, which is what equality means, is irrational.
It also protects my right to shred you for it.
No, Tomi. All you did was shred his statements and act as if your perverted version of them is right.
See, the national anthem and our flag, they are not symbols of black America, white America, brown America, or purple America for that matter. There are patriots of every race that have fought and died for this country, and we honor the flag and sing the anthem as a reminder.
I'm going to stop here. Now, if this is an argument against Kaepernick's statements, then I'll counter that argument with a little bit of history. The flag was a rarity until the buildup of the Civil War, when it became a sort of fuck you to secessionists as a symbol of unity. It was at that point where the demand for the flag became such that it was mass-produced and widely distributed. For Kaepernick to say that he won't stand while the flag is improperly representative of the populace, on one hand, this is true. And people like Tomi are indicative of why this is true. An open dialogue on race and inequality is not worthy of airtime for her, for any other reason than to stifle attempts to have an open dialogue on race and inequality. Tomi Lahren doesn't want to hear anything from a minority other than gratitude at the hard work from the type of person she self-identifies as that has built the utopia that is the United States. However, when people are saying that they feel subhuman, so much so that there is a need to remind you that Black lives matter just as much as everyone else, and you go out of your way to stamp out those feelings, you are responsible for creating the divide. Kaepernick has already separated out the American populace as his focus of his protest, and speaking to the press when he said, when he feels like the flag represents what it's supposed to represent, and this country is representing people the way it's supposed to, I'll stand. To me, his statement here proves his reverence for the flag and respect for all Americans. But in addition to this, he's also spoken of his respect for the military, and himself has loved ones that are fighting.
And Colin, if this country disgusts you so much, leave. I guarantee there are thousands and thousands of people around the world that would gladly take your spot. Because those that don't live under this flag are banging on the door to get in, not get out. Remember that.
Kaepernick never expressed disgust for the United States. But even if he had, the answer to a problem is not to turn your back and run away from them, or seek out someone who is willing to endure the hardships caused by the problem. Why suggest as much from someone who protests a social issue? Would you suggest to someone who has a leaky faucet to move out of their home? Or would you maybe suggest a plumber that can fix the problem? An argument of someone else having a desire to live in your neighborhood despite not being able to afford a house there is not a valid argument against mowing your lawn. Just because this country is goddamn great doesn't mean we shouldn't, as a people, continuously identify, seek out, and fix any problems we may have.
Is our country perfect? No. But what have you done to make it better? What's your contribution? Sitting there like a fool?
How about bringing attention to an important social issue?
What's selfish is you, buddy. And what's your message to black kids, to people of color? That their biggest contribution to justice and self-fulfillment is to parade around with a chip on their shoulder like a victim?
Colin Kaepernick hasn't yet spoken out on this issue with even close to the level of vitriol that Tomi Lahren is about Colin Kaepernick in this video. And yet she feels like he, and not herself, has a chip on his shoulder. And since we're speaking about social responsibility to our youth, what is she teaching little white kids? That efforts to promote equality should be treated with disdain? That we should be proud of a status quo that victimizes or oppresses a group?
And Colin, how dare you sit there and blame white people for the problems of minority communities?
Here's the biggest problem right here. Tomi has taken issue to what she perceives to be an insult against the American citizen. Except, as we just discovered with this statement, she views the term American citizen to be synonymous with white American, because Kaepernick didn't blame a racial group for the inequalities he perceives. But Tomi Lahren took an insult to the symbol of America to be an insult to white America only, at least implying that she herself sees people of color as less than American, and suddenly her anger at Kaepernick makes sense. But then so does Kaepernick's protest.
After all, aren't you half white? Didn't two white parents adopt you after yours weren't willing to raise you? For a racist and horrible country filled with racist and horrible white people, that's really something, isn't it? Maybe you should also decline the paycheck from the white owner of your team, or the white fans that buy your merchandise and fill the stands to watch you play. There's a statement I don't see you making anytime soon.
She then compounds the obvious lack of a social responsibility she believes she has by pointing out that Kaepernick is half white and was raised by adoptive white parents. This in a disgusting attempt to once again imply that America is problem-free and that Kaepernick is too far removed by being both half white and granted access to whiteness by a white upbringing to be bothering himself with issues of race. At least that's what she implies. I mean, if a single white person pays you a salary, a large group of white people purchase products endorsed by you, then there's unequivocal proof in her mind that racism or oppression of others is impossible. If you break Ms. Lahren's argument down to its core, then she's basically saying, Colin Kaepernick, you're way too white and way too successful to give a fuck about people of color.
And Colin, who's getting away with murder? I'd like to see some evidence to back that up, because that's a pretty strong claim. And what about the oppression of black people? It's funny. Through that 6-year career of yours, you choose to start sitting now? What changed to make you so resentful of your country?
As Tomi sees it, growing up and learning as we age is also impossible. Or maybe this is just compounded evidence of her ideas about a lack of social responsibility. He never blamed white people for anything, nor did he alleviate black people from blame. But you chose to reinforce this narrative falsely to argue in favor of removing yourself and white people as a whole from any burden inherent in an open discussion on race and inequality. Tomi Lahren believes and argued passionately, using Kaepernick as an example, against standing together to seek solutions to problems impacting people of different socioeconomic classes from ourselves. If you're wealthy and black, then problems of the poor black community don't apply to you, and therefore you have no right to speak out on them. This is more true to her the less black you are. If you're white, you should not offer any support or even speak on issues negatively impacting people of color, and vice versa. There's even a sneaky implication that if you've never personally experienced racism, then you have no way of proving it exists and therefore should remain silent and inert on the issue. In Tomi Lahren's opinion, ideas like a young man helping a little old lady carry her groceries is an absurdity, and the little old lady community should take responsibility for their predicament and work out their problems on their own. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. I'm out.